doing these on Monday and just quickly go through sort of what's happened over the weekend, what we're looking forward to for the week, and also talk through some of the events that we have coming up this week. So, where would you like to start, Susan?
Well, you may have noticed in your inbox that we have a couple new features, and it's for our paid subscribers. And if you'd like to make sure that you receive them each and every week, I'll just put in my plug so that you join our full membership. But we have our weekly Lincoln log in case you missed any stories. We catch you up. And it's a great way for the weekend to start out on Friday mornings. And then this morning, we have our winners and losers that will be every Monday morning. And it's just our way of going through some of the Trump insanity, who was particularly egregious, who acted heroically. And this week we have a new pope and an old dope. So we've got our Secretary of Defense. You can guess which one he is. And then our new Pope, Leo the 14th, who happens to be from Chicago like me.
Yeah, there are a lot of people in Chicagoland who are pretty excited. Some of the if you have not seen the I don't know if it was originally no, it couldn't have been a TikTok because it was too long. But there's a video of the new pope coming out onto the balcony for the first time to the music of for all of us basketball fans from the 90s will recognize the Chicago Bulls opening music, and it's pretty fantastic.
Yeah,
I,
it's Eye in the Sky. If you were around for the Jordan 1 and 2 eras, it will bring you back. And it's kind of amazing how that Chicago pride just kicks in all of a sudden.
yeah, it's pretty
Um,
cool.
so that was kind of a highlight of last week. But we do have plenty of headlines to go through now of some not so great things because we are in the second Trump regime. Um, well, we can start with President Trump has a new plane, courtesy of the good folks at Qatar.
Yeah, apparently, the violations of the emoluments clause in Trump 1, um, in Trump 2, you just have to grossly overdo your violations of
Hmm.
accepting gifts. And so Trump has accepted an airplane. But of course, it's not actually a plane for the United States. It's a plane that Trump has been gifted, and he will use it while he is in office rather than using Air Force One. And then when he leaves office, he takes a plane with him, and it will become, theoretically, it's going to belong to the presidential library, which we all know actually means it's going to be in Trump's personal pocket.
Right. And I believe the phrase they're using is a palace in the sky, which, is a great contrast with all the rising prices that us regular folks have to contend with. But at least the president has his palace. And, I think one of the great tricks that Trump has been able to utilize is that his corruption is just all out in the open. And so, there's no digging that the media has to do. There's no, Watergate discovery over the course of months.
Yeah.
And it's all stuff that, exceeds any scandal with Hunter Biden. And so, no, we don't have to do investigative reporting to track it down, but it doesn't make it, any less egregious. And for some reason that seems to play into the coverage that it gets like, oh, it's just Trump being Trump. But I mean, for any other president, this would take him or her down.
Yeah, it's once again Trump, because he's so blatant about his corruption. Somehow he is able to present this as, well, this is a completely transparent transaction. just because you're transparently corrupt does not make it not corrupt. You're still accepting gifts from another government. Um, and it's a big gift. I haven't heard the price tag on this thing. I'm sure, it's in the many millions. And I have not seen what the inside of this thing looks like, but I am sure it is, gaudy and disgusting and looks like Mar-a-Lago. And apparently, we're gonna pretend like this is okay and normal.
Right. Um, so we have that. We also have Trump backing down on tariffs, which is a huge surprise with China. It's kind of the Trump cycle. He creates a problem because he does not understand governance and policy. And then he sees that there's a backlash because he is, very influenced by public opinion. He wants to be beloved. And so when people don't like it and the stock market doesn't like something, he does adjust, but then he kind of makes a bad situation a little bit less bad. Certainly can't, bring us back to what was working well or at least better. And then he claims victory. And then it's just this cycle of instability and stupidity, and we have to go through this all the time.
Right, and we still have 30% tariffs
Right.
against China. They're still higher than they were. China still has a 10% tariff on us, and we've been talking, a lot about these ripple effects that are going to go through the economy, whether Trump backs down on his tariffs or not. So we're going to see 3 months minimum of the major disruption because people have not been placing orders for goods. People have, average citizens have been going out and pre-buying things that they would have bought over a 3-month period. And now that money is not going to be going into the economy for the next couple of months. So we have not seen the damage yet from the tariffs. And, Trump thinks he can turn on and turn off tariffs and there won't be any lagging impacts of this stuff that he does, but they're going to be there. I was listening to an economist talking this morning about how because now there's going to be sudden action in imports and exports, you're going to end up with these major, not even traffic jams, but shortage of the ability to ship because everybody's going to be now trying to do it at the same time. So even though he's dialed this back because it was obviously a huge loser for him, that all the polling was showing that people hate these idiotic tariffs that he has put on. We'll see. This is only a 90-day pause. So if the Chinese do something to hurt his feelings, then I would assume a week from now, we could be right back where we were. And that's the instability that nobody knows how to deal with. So people pull back.
Right. And, we're still in this situation where, there were no shipping containers coming into the port of Los Angeles, which has not happened since COVID when we had a real disaster, not a Trump made disaster. And so, you can't unring that bell. That still happened and there
Yeah.
will still be an effect. And you still have major companies like Apple is saying, well, we're going to raise the price of our iPhones no matter what. And so, the idea that this is not going to hit us, those of us who do not have palaces in the sky is just a folly.
Yeah, it's really going to hurt. As always, it's going to hurt the people at the bottom of the income scale the most, because this is a tax, and people who are forced to spend all of their disposable income, it really is essential income. So you don't get to set that aside and decide to buy things a different time. You're forced into the market because you're buying the things, the necessities, to live every day, food and all of the products that human beings need. So it's really sad that he continues to do this with absolutely no regard for middle and lower income people, but that should be no surprise at all. Speaking of no surprises, we saw over the weekend the video out of Massachusetts with ICE agents tackling a young mother. You talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, we're starting to see these just horrific videos that are coming out. I mean, whether it's just these masked ICE agents, they're just swarming people in cities, like these Gestapo tactics, and then like real actual violence, like against this mother in Massachusetts, who was with her children, and slamming her head into the ground. And we saw the Newark mayor was arrested on Friday at an ICE protest because apparently First Amendment rights don't extend to protesting ICE, which is a very frightening concept. And I feel like, between this idea of like you really don't know where ICE is going to strike next. You don't know which of the essentials that, you budget for every month is going to skyrocket. I mean, these are the kinds of things that even if you voted for Trump or, you're just not very political, that it starts to affect you. And I think that's why we're seeing more and more people joining these protests, not just those of us who were attending back in 2017, but, people who are just, waking up to a world that they did not expect. And, we need as many people as possible to join this resistance because it does make a difference. Trump, might say, whatever I do, is the law and you'll just follow it. But he's watching all these protests. The Supreme Court
Right.
watches these protests.
Right. Yeah, that's such an important point. Courts do not operate in vacuums. They are reactive to some degree to what's going on in the public. So those protests are really important. There was a whole band of community members who stood up and tried to shield this woman from being detained. So people are becoming, in part, emboldened, but also just the shock factor is wearing off a little bit, and I think people are becoming in these communities more prepared to react when these things happen. So I think you're going to start seeing a lot more scenes where people don't see these mass people pull up in an unmarked van and they all back away. I think you're going to see a lot more people coming forward and standing up and saying we're not going to accept this anymore. So you we heard from Trump. We're going to start with the worst of the worst. And that's what Tom Homan had said to us. So, you know, this mother is the worst of the worst. Or are we supposed to also believe that she's a member of MS-13 or the students that were detained? Fortunately, one of them who was being held, a young woman in Louisiana, she was released over the weekend. But um, these are college students who are exercising their First Amendment rights, which is what we are all uh, supposed to be welcome to do in this country. And I live in Vermont. We had 8 migrant dairy farm workers who were detained, and several of them have been already removed from the country. And these people aren't the worst of the worst. They're essential workers in our state and in a lot of states' agricultural communities. So, these we need these folks here. They are not taking anyone else's jobs. We can't find people in Vermont. We have a 2.4% unemployment rate. We don't have anybody to do these jobs. If you kick these people who are trying to create better lives for themselves and for their families and are sending money home to their families, it's just unbelievably cruel, and it's economically idiotic.
Absolutely. And I think the first 100 days was really the time for Trump to do the full crackdown. And, he didn't. A lot of people were very scared to show up to protests initially, which is understandable. And
Yes.
especially if you are undocumented or if you are trans, you were very, very afraid. But, for those of us who um, you know, are willing to stand up for them. We have not seen these mass arrests at protests. We can stand up and we can resist what they are doing. And for all of Trump's bluster that I run the world, I run America, basically I'm the king. Kings have a lot more control over their subjects. We are still citizens, not subjects. And so I think that's something that, in spite of how horrific these incidents are, and they certainly are. But, we have not lost our ability to stand up and protest and to tell our members of Congress that this is not acceptable and to tell them that cutting Medicare and Social Security and Medicaid on top of all of these tariffs is not acceptable. And we are watching, and they will be held responsible in 2016. And they will be held responsible every day because we are citizens. And so
Yeah.
that's just the community that we are trying to build here at Lincoln Square. And, we really appreciate all of the members of our Lincoln Loyal community because you're on the front lines of democracy.
Yeah, this is a important time to step up and speak out, and we have so many members of our community who are doing it in all sorts of different ways. I want to remind everybody this week, write your members of Congress, call them to push back on this awful budget bill that is, making its way over to the Senate. Republicans are in total disarray around this, and we have to keep that pressure on because the $880 billion worth of cuts that they want to make are primarily going to come out of Medicaid and Social Security, and it's the the ripple effects on everyone's health care. We need to worry about those who are most vulnerable. We also need to understand that when the Medicaid system has money pulled out of it, people are going to become sicker. And those people are still going to, we haven't had the Affordable Care Act that long. We should remember what this was like before Medicaid expansion. People went to emergency rooms because they weren't getting care early enough. So instead, they ended up sicker with more expensive things to treat. And they showed up in hospitals who are required to provide care, whether or not they're going to get reimbursed from Medicaid or a private insurer. And our hospitals, especially our rural hospitals, are already teetering on the brink of economic collapse. And they cannot afford to be providing free care for people who come in. And when those rural hospitals close, that has an impact on all of us. There aren't alternatives for a lot of people in rural communities. If your local hospital closes down, you have a long, long way to go if you have a heart attack or a stroke or get injured and need to be able to get quickly, or you're, you know, in labor. Just the normal things that happen, that it would be better if you're not 2 hours away from the closest hospital. That in a lot of cases is a difference of life and death, or in the case of strokes, permanent injury, that if you can get care fast enough, doesn't need to be the case. So we all need to care about what's going to happen to Medicaid if they make these cuts that they're talking about. So call your members of Congress, write them, fivecalls.org. There are lots of different places that you can go that will give you the information you need, even the scripts, if you're not comfortable just calling up and speaking to them. But it really makes a difference. They log those calls. They know how their constituents feel about these things. So it truly does make a difference. Call them every day.
And one feature that we always do every week with the Lincoln Log is we do have a section for upcoming protests. So that's a great way for you to keep it, in touch with what's going on nationally and also in your community. And so I also want us to get to some of the great lives and features that we have coming up this week on Lincoln Square.
Yeah, let's see. Today, what else do we have going on this afternoon? I was going to have a conversation with Andrew Watkins, but we're going to push that off for a little later in the week. Um, Tomorrow, we have our regular strategy session at 7 p.m., which is for our members only. So please do become a paid subscriber. Take part in that. The conversations that are happening in the chat are incredibly smart and vibrant, and it's such a wonderful community that's participating in those. And you can drop your questions in there. And then we have a new show that's starting tomorrow. I'll let you jump into that one, Susan.
Yeah, so we have two veterans, and you've probably seen them on our show before. We have Dan Barkoff, and we have uh, Bobby
Bobby
is
Jones.
on.
Yeah.
Yep, Bobby Jones is on, and they are going to be on our network on a regular basis, talking about veterans issues, talking about the news of the day, talking about masculinity and what it really means, and talking about the history of both the military and conflicts, and how Trump is running the Pentagon or how he's not. And so we're really looking forward to hearing from them and their expertise, because nobody knows what it's like on the inside better than both of them. And, you know, to have served in the military and to have seen the best of what this country can offer versus what the new DOD is under Pete Hegseth, it's just shocking, and nobody can tell us better than people on the inside.
Yeah, they're both really remarkable. Commander Jones, we've had him on a couple of times now. If you haven't seen those, um, go back and take a look. He is incredibly smart and dynamic and charismatic. And you all probably know Dan Barkoff because he's been in the Lincoln Square, Lincoln Project world for years now. Dan's a real underachiever. He went to the Naval Academy, as did Bobby Jones. And then he became a Navy SEAL and served in Iraq and Afghanistan. And then, because that wasn't enough, he came home and became an emergency room doctor after attending Harvard Med. So they're both just incredibly accomplished, really kind, smart human beings. So everybody tune in for that. That's at noon tomorrow.
Mhm.
Um, and then on Wednesday, we are packed. We have so many good things coming up. We have Stuart Stevens going to be talking to Representative Jared Moskowitz at 10:30. That's going to be a great conversation. And then in the evening, Rick Wilson is being joined by Representative Jasmine Crockett. And I am really looking forward to both of those conversations. Those are going to be really amazing. Um,
Yeah.
and then in the evening, we have Maya May, who is going to be on with this amazing Gen Z candidate. Her name's Deja Fox. Um, you are not going to want to miss that conversation. What an incredible young woman she is. It's, if anybody doesn't have the hope that they should in Gen Z, watch this conversation because Deja is just amazing.
Yeah. And we really are seeing a lot more Gen Z um, candidates step up already this cycle, because it's understandable. A lot of us are very frustrated. A lot of us are looking for leadership, and you know, if we're not seeing it, it's up to us to challenge our officials, because that is their job. This is not a normal time, and so if our current leaders don't understand that, and they're still looking for ways to work with Trump, then I think it is amazing to see that, some of these candidates who, came of age in COVID and they've seen what Trump did the first time. They haven't forgotten. And they want to fight back and they want to get into the arena. And so it's great. I'm looking forward to us talking to more of these candidates like Deja Fox
Yeah.
because they're the ones who are saying we're not going to wait. We need change. We need to beat this back because we want to preserve our democracy.
Yeah. People need to do their jobs or get out of the way. And too many people in Congress right now are not doing their jobs. So people have had their chances. We've now had months of the Trump administration. We know what they are. We know what they're trying to do. We know this is a fascist movement. And if that isn't enough to get you up out of your seat and doing what you need to be doing to fight back, then you don't belong in Congress anymore. And you should make room for somebody who is willing to fight the fight that we're in the middle of. So that's my soapbox. Um, have we reached the end? We'll be scheduling more things all week. So
Right.
Thursday and Friday, check back
Yeah.
probably by tomorrow. We'll have more. We keep a list on our Substack. You can see right in the menu across the top that there is the live schedule. So check back there because we're adding more all the time.
Yeah, and please drop into the chat if there is anyone that you would love to hear from on these Substack lives with our team because we are always looking for new guests and new voices. And of course, I'd be remiss if I wouldn't ask if you haven't become a paid subscriber yet to consider upgrading because we are adding so many new features and especially for our paid subscribers as we continue to expand. And so we'd love to have you join us.
Yeah, and I'll give sort of the NPR pitch, which is also under threat, by the way. So if you don't support public radio and television, consider that. Um, Not everybody who is a subscriber to Lincoln Square is able to afford a paid subscription right now. And the work that we do is important for everybody to have access to. And we do want to keep creating more and more content. And a lot of it is not behind a paywall, but it still does take a team doing this work and technology and all the rest of it. So for those of you who can, um, get a paid subscription, you're not just getting access for yourself, you're helping give a lot of other people access who otherwise, just do not have it in the budget right now. We hear from a lot of folks who are on a seniors who are on a fixed income. And subscriptions are just not something that they're able to do right now. So, if you are able to do that, we do ask that you consider subscribing because it's God, this is important. I can't think of more important work to be doing right now and to be making sure that everybody has access to. So subscribe if you can. Check back with us later this week to see what other lives are coming up and make sure you are back here tomorrow for the live at noon with Bobby Jones and Dan Barkoff is the next one coming up.
Great. Thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great week, everybody.